Hi everybody, I'm Bill Whittle, and I've been doing this show with my friend Andrew Klavan for a while now, probably 4 or 5 years, and there's something I've never had a chance to say to him before, but I'd like to take that chance to say to him now, and that's this, Andrew. I'm watching you, man. I'm watching you.
I saw you outside my window. It's frightening.
I'm watching you. All right?
It's strange.
Your question today comes from Maurice Mason, and it is, are most modern-day leftists basically good people who are sincere in their desire to make the world a better place, but misguided in how to get there? Do they really have good intentions when paving the road to hell? Or, I'm just going to add, are they evil, miserable Nazi bastards designed to take away our slavery and our money?
You know, as always, you've got to make a division between the leaders and the people who vote for the leaders. Most people are, you know, as Rush would say, low information voters. They're reading, they're scanning the headlines, possibly even on, Facebook rather than the newspaper. They have a sense of what's going on, but remember, that sense is carefully manipulated. I mean, if you read the New York Times cover to cover, you would probably get a fairly good sense of what's going on. If you only read the first 3 paragraphs, it's all left-wing propaganda. You know, it's very cleverly arranged because they know that that's what most people are doing. At the level of the leadership, I just wrote a blog about this yesterday on the Klavan on the Culture blog at PJ Media. The Democrat leadership has become Gollum from Lord of the Rings. And the reason they've become Gollum from Lord of the Rings is because the press is their ring of invisibility.
It is.
It's, you know, I call it not just the press, it's the precious, you know?
Because, oh, dude, that's perfect.
because it really is true that when the whole point of the ring of invisibility in the Lord of the Rings, and I explain this brilliantly on my blog, but I'll just go through it quickly, is when you're invisible, you're no longer subject to punishment or the social pressures around you, and evil has its way with you. We're all broken inside. We're all corrupt. If there's no threat of punishment, it is the very, very rare individual who is going to still maintain his virtue. I mean, this is like back from Plato. They've talked about this. If you can be invisible, you would become corrupt. The Democrats at the top level have become invisible because the press is their ring of invisibility. They just simply ignore and small their scandals and their dishonesty. Anybody with the imagination of a toad could sit for a minute and think what would have happened to George W. Bush if the IRS under his watch had targeted left-wing organizations. I mean, really, I think the building of the New York Times would have just exploded, like boom, Times Square would have been wiped off the map. You know, Obama does it to conservatives. Even Obama, for a moment, caught in the headlines, said, this is terrible, we have to do something about that, and then realized he was invisible. Yeah. The ring kept him invisible. And so suddenly all that, we've got to do something about it. There's not a smidgen of corruption. They have become worse and worse and worse over these last 8 years as they've been protected by that ring.
They're just eating raw fish in a cave now.
Right. And what we have to hope is that mass of people who really are good people, who really are, just want the world to be a better place, who want the world to be fair, and who are voting for him, you have to hope that they start to notice that they're really voting for this little blue guy who's eating raw fish with his claws and start to turn their votes in another direction.
Yes. Hillary Clinton's numbers have fallen from 60 to about 45% with the publication of endless scandals. Yeah. The fact that it's at 45% is just terrifying. But it's starting to sink in. One of the more hopeful things I saw, because there's little things sometimes are the guideposts of what's actually happening in the bigger world. But not too long ago, they interviewed Shepard Fairey, who was the author who did, the artist who did the Hope posters in 2008, yes. The iconic Hope, Barack Obama Hope posters. And somebody said, so has Obama turned out to be the guy you thought he was going to be? He said, not even close. Mm. Now, what he means by that is he wasn't communist enough, wasn't socialist enough, wasn't all these other things. But the fact is, does anybody, is there in the quiet hours of the darkness of the night, looking at the ceiling, because he's still got a lot of supporters that follow him to the ground, but is there anybody, including black Americans, is there anybody out there who thinks, wow, this guy has met or exceeded my expectations?
Out of the park.
Is there one?
Is
there one? And of all the things that I think are the most damaging to Barack Obama, you can say things like Benghazi, you can say things like the IRS scandal, Fast and Furious, you can say that, all of it, the red line in Syria, the selling out the missile defense. None of that really sinks in on his supporters, but I have to suspect the one thing that does get to them is him playing all of this golf. I mean, you got to think if you are one of these progressives who is sending a black man to the White House, right, to right the horrible injustices against the poor and the downtrodden in America, what could be more disturbing than the image of this guy out there doing the whitest, most conservative male kind of, it's a cartoon, a guy on a golf course. It's what businessmen do. And he doesn't just do it a bit. He's out there all the time. To me, seeing Barack Obama on the golf course is him selling out every core principle he ran in on, and he's there all the time. And the worse things get for him, the more golfing he does.
But you're beyond the question of personalities, too. The thing that is, I find discouraging is how can we get it across to people that our policies, our evil, right-wing, conservative, nasty policies, achieve their goals better than their policies do? How many times do they have to make speeches about the poverty, the horrible, bigoted police, and then have their cities burst into flames and their crime rates skyrocket before they realize that tough policing keeps people safe? You know, how many times do they have to give peace a chance and desert, the Middle East and leave it to this in flames before they realize that no, you have to be strong to keep the peace? How many times do they have to realize that inequality it comes from hurting businesses, not from letting businesses be free? It's just that, to me, that you can't seem to get them to understand that their philosophy doesn't work. That, to me, is more discouraging than the invisibility of the individual.
I think this is the work I've been doing mostly lately for the last couple of years, is to going right directly to the cognitive dissonance of the left. I say this again and again, I'm saying it more and more often. Nice thing about my job is I get to say one thing and do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And there's no conflict for me. I think I want my accountant to keep my taxes as low as possible legally, and I don't say I want high taxes and then say, oh, by the way, Murray, I get to live and do the same things, and pointing out the cognitive dissonance. The question was about the difference between the leadership and you mentioned the leadership and the masses. Not masses, they're citizens. They think of us as masses. The leadership knows that they're lying about these things, and the common people are gaining this sort of general sense that my support for the people on the streets of Ferguson and Baltimore makes me uncomfortable with the idea that this could happen here. Yeah. There's a great story about, in California, if you own a gun in California in the 90s or late 80s, what's the matter with you? Are you a nut? Right. And then the riots happened, and people who had guns got calls at 2 o'clock in the morning. Right. Hey, Jim, do you think you can spare one of these?
Yeah.
That's all we have time for today, but you can let us know what questions you'd like answered directly below. For Andrew Klavan and PJ TV, I'm Bill Whittle. Thanks for watching.